First name is William, last name is Weems, is that correct?
First name is Twain, middle name is William, last name is Weems.
And Santana refers to you by your last name?
He refers to me as William. For a lot of Hispanics, Twain is difficult to say, so they will call me William.
And you were close friends, good friends, sort of friends, or acquaintances with Mr. Santana on April 4th, 2015?
Fayden and I were good friends. We hadn't spoken in a while, but we were good friends. We talked quite often and talked about the Dominican Republic. We've even traveled there together.
And did you discuss news events, or, I mean, when you got together, you talked about baseball, or what type of relationship did you have?
Fayden and I talked about the Dominican Republic a lot. We talked about life in the Dominican. When I met him, he was about to have a child, so we talked about that. Those were the basis of our conversations.
And what was his wife's name?
I don't remember her name.
What's his child's name?
And I don't know his child's name right now, sorry.
But he was a close friend.
Yes.
Now, in the friendship you had with him, you wanted to protect him following the events of the morning on April 4th on Craig Street, is that correct?
Yes, when that happened, my goal was to make sure that Fayden was okay.
And part of that protection was physical, or was it social?
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
In other words, was the protection, the word protection, a term used to protect his physical being, or his mental being, or his social being?
At that point in time, Fayden was concerned about all three. When we talked, he was concerned about physically being harmed. He had some things that were going on as far as, just some paranoia and so forth. So yes, all three.
And as far as that paranoia goes, what's the name of his therapist?
Well, he was meeting with Trey at one point in time, because Trey came to my apartment to meet with him. And that's all I know. And I know Trey because he works at the school.
But I'm talking about a therapist now. You're familiar with the Charleston Area Mental Health that provides free services for those?
That's who I'm talking about.
Paranoid?
I'm talking about the person that came to meet with him when he had set up therapy. And the only reason I knew his name was because he worked at the school.
And do you know whether there was ever any therapy given at the Charleston Area Mental Health?
I do know he did attend therapy.
You went with him?
No, I did not.
How do you know that?
Because one, Trey came to my home, and he's from the MUSC. Also, he went and he used my address, and because he used my address, there are bills that come for him.
And I'm sure if he attended therapy at the Charleston Area Mental Health, there's some record of it.
That I don't know. I am not, that's above my scope.
But you are a researcher, as you had indicated earlier. You work at Stall High School, and you're an educator, therefore you are a researcher. Is that correct? That's your testimony.
I can figure things out. I didn't feel a need to figure out whether or not he was receiving therapy. I can tell you, as I said, what I know, but I didn't see a need to research that. It's not my business.
Now, did you research Mr. Anthony O'Neill, the attorney that Mr. Santana went to see?
I did not research him. All I can tell you is when we were there, we were not comfortable. I wasn't comfortable, and Fayden wasn't comfortable.
And did you know that Mr. O'Neill is an attorney with an established practice in Charleston, South Carolina?
I do not know. I did not research him.
And Mr. O'Neill's African American?
Yes.
And he is in his 60s?
I don't know how old he is. He appeared to be in his 60s.
But he's not a member of the House of Representatives.
No,
He's not a politician.
no.
Yet, Mr. Bamberg, who you first saw, who was sitting in here earlier, is a member of the House of Representatives, and that's who is representing the Scott family.
Okay.
I'm asking,
I didn't know that at the time.
and you know that now.
I do know that now, yes.
And you know that Mr. Rutherford is the minority Democratic leader in the House of Representatives,
I know that now as well.
and he's a politician.
Yes.
And it was based on that advice to go to the meeting.
I did not have the conversation when he went to the media. He told me that he wanted me to come with him when he went to the media. I did not involve myself in that conversation.
And NBC paid your way to go to New York.
Yes, they did. I didn't pay for it myself, so
You're not related in any way to Mr. Santana.
no, I'm not.
Yet you went up to New York City. What day was it?
That was on a Wednesday.
And was Officer Slager arrested on Wednesday?
I really don't remember. Maybe so.
And did you go to New York City and talk to Morning Joe?
Did I talk to Morning Joe?
Did you go to the Morning Joe set at NBC?
I was at the set, yes.
And did you go to CNN and go on their set?
I was at the set, yes, I
And
was.
did you go to the Today Show and was on their set?
Yes, I did.
How many more television interviews did you do on set in New York City?
There were a few. I don't remember. There were a few, and he did some in Spanish as well.
Telemundo,
Mm-hmm.
correct?
Correct.
You say anything to anybody in the New York City Police Department that you had this video of a police shooting?
Did I say something?
Yes.
No, I didn't talk to anybody.
Did you tell anybody in the New York City Police Department that you were with a fellow who had filmed the shooting of a person by a police officer and that the fellow that did the filming was scared to death?
No, I shared that with his attorney. I felt like that was where I needed to share that.
Did you tell anybody from the Charleston County Sheriff's Department that he was scared to death?
I shared it with his attorney.
Did you tell anybody from the City of Charleston Police Department he was scared to death?
Once again, I shared it with his attorney.
Did you talk to anybody from the Berkeley County Sheriff's Department?
I talked to his attorney.
Did you talk to the State Law Enforcement Division?
I talked to his attorney, and I felt his attorney would take care of that.
His politician attorney?
Well, initially, I spoke to his initial attorney, and his initial attorney said that he has no reason to be afraid. And when he said that, I looked at him and I told him, and this is the reason why I felt uncomfortable, if his fear is real to him, then it is real. And those were part of the reasons why he left, that attorney.
Because Mr. O'Neill said he had nothing to fear because there were honest, hardworking police officers all around the Charleston community, from the FBI to the State Law Enforcement Division to local police. Isn't that correct?
He didn't say that. He said that he has no reason to be afraid, and that was it. And as I explained to him, if he has a fear, then that fear is real to him, and it should be addressed. And he should not be placated and told that it's not real.
In any event, you all went up to New York, fear or not, no fear of flying, was there?
No.
Was there any fear on the streets of New York City?
There, as I said before, Faden was at a state where he was paranoid. And that's why he felt comfortable with me being there and felt comfortable with his family being there.
And is this a picture of Mr. Santana on that day before you talked to the police in New York City?
Where's the picture?
I'm waiting for it.
Your Honor, again, I'd ask that it be marked as an exhibit for the record.
You wish to have it marked as an exhibit? not in evidence.
May I be heard, Your Honor?
Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, if you go to the jury room, please do not discuss the case. Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I was not intending to mark this in evidence. I don't think that's the appropriate thing to do. I can mark it for identification, but I don't believe that it's necessary to do more than that.
Well, the problem is publishing something to the jury and then asking, can he identify it? If he cannot, then it's been published to the jury.
So
If you,
If I ask him if he can identify the shot of it, and he can identify it, could I mark it for identification and then show it to the jury?
you're asking for procedural advice or from the court?
I just don't want to have to ask the jury to leave every time I try to do something.
Well, you wanted to, why don't you see if he can identify it?
I want to show you a photograph, not the rest of the documents information, but the photograph itself. Are you familiar with
Okay, and
the
before you, as you show it to him, do you wish to have it marked for identification so that the record will reflect what document you were using? Mr. Savage? For identification purposes.
What's been marked as defendants for identification 2, can you identify the photograph?
Yeah, that is Peyton Santana.
And do you know where that picture was taken?
Here it's clearly at the Today Show, where the Today is in the background.
Now, I would like to publish that to the jury.
Okay, no problem. Let's just be at ease for a few moments. Good time for a stretch break anyway. 39, I guess it is. Stand and stretch. Be at ease for just a moment or two. Is there any objection to that exhibit being published to the jury without being admitted into evidence by the state?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
And what is the objection?
This exhibit is more than just a photograph. It has all sorts of writing all around it. If they want to introduce the photograph cropped from this page, I don't object to that.
Do you have that capacity?
Yes, when we asked the witness, I asked him just to refer to the photograph, not to any of the...
Yeah, but I'm referring to, you were about to put something you said was coming up on a screen somewhere. Is what's coming up on the screen just the photograph?
Yes.
All right. You can bring the jury, please.
Yes. Oh, okay. Cool. Everybody from Ohio is down here. I said everybody from Ohio is here.
Thank you. Let's see.
Mr. Williamson, before the break, I was asking you about your trip to New York, and you were with Mr. Santana in New York. Do you recognize this picture?
Yes,
And who is that and where is that?
that is Peyton Santana, and that is at the Today Show.
And did Mr. Santana have any security from NBC or any other media agencies in New York?
No,
Did Mr. Santana, was he able to walk around from NBC to CNN to CBS to ABC to Fox News without security?
well, he was actually taken to those places, and he didn't have security, and at that point in time, neither he nor I knew what to do or who to ask for security, but as I said, the concerns were addressed or made clear to those involved.
Taken there in a limousine?
I'm sorry?
Taken around in a limousine?
It was an SUV.
A black SUV that's used for transportation, shiny, nice NBC.
Well, it was a black SUV, yes, it was, so.
Now,
Yes.
Do you know where that family was from?
Yeah, his family's from the Dominican Republic. They,
So they flew from the Dominican Republic up to New York to meet him?
no, his grandmother got a residency and a citizenship here and then sent for her children. And Faden was young at the time, beginning high school when his aunts and uncles and mother and dad came over.
Well, I'm talking about April of 2015. You had indicated that a relative came to New York City.
Right.
Did that relative come to New York City from the Dominican Republic?
No,
Where did that relative come from?
he came from New York, New Jersey area.
Right across the George Washington Bridge.
I don't know where he lives, but
Was there any effort to get Mr. Santana to stay with his relatives across the bridge, or was that not considered?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Well, it's clear that he was scared, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So didn't have relatives in South Carolina, is that correct?
Correct?
And he was scared being in South Carolina, is that correct?
Correct?
But he didn't appear to be scared in New York City, was he?
I believe that he had a fear and a paranoia wherever he was, even in the picture. You see he's not smiling. So it wasn't as if he was happy. However, if you want to know, I'll let you ask the question, I'm sorry.
His family lived right across the bridge in New Jersey,
Mm-hmm.
is that correct?
Correct.
Did he go and stay with them, or did he come back to Charleston?
He came to Charleston, then he did go back and stay with his family, and then eventually he came back to Charleston.
Now, when he came back to Charleston, the information had still not been provided to law enforcement, is that correct?
I don't know if it was or not, but it was shared with his attorney.
And he conducted more television interviews when he came back to Charleston, is that correct?
When he came back that day? Or are you saying after that?
That day, the next day, days later?
He did conduct some interviews, yes.
And then within a week, he decided not to do any more interviews, he wanted to be paid for them.
He was never paid for interviews that I know of. He never asked to be paid for interviews.
So, do you know that he hired an agent for celebrities?
I don't believe he hired the agent. I believe that came through his attorney, but once again, I don't know 100%.
And do you know within a week of the incident that he refused to allow any news media broadcast the video without payment of $10,000?
Oh, that was published in the newspapers and so forth?
When you first found out about the video, you had a discussion with him, did you not, about the media?
I had a discussion with him. I had a discussion with everyone. I knew that it was going to become a big item. I told Attorney Stewart that this is the precipice of something big, yes.
And you made some phone calls. on
Yes, I
his
did.
behalf.
Yes,
And among the phone calls that you made were to news organizations.
yes, I did.
And this was on April 4th.
It was on April 4th. I believe so, yes.
Days before, you knew of the video, you made phone calls on his behalf, including to news organizations, at least 2 days, if not 3 days before the video was turned over to law enforcement.
Correct. At that time, I didn't know what to do. He didn't know what to do. And yes, I made phone calls. I had a friend who worked for the news. I called him. And then I called someone else because I didn't know what to do. It was put in my lap, and yeah, I was concerned, and I made some phone calls.
And you all discussed how much to pay for the video.
That came up. Faden was concerned. He just came here. He didn't know what to do. He wanted to go back to the Dominican Republic. And I discussed all options with everyone. and those were things that I discussed.
Including selling the video.
I discussed all options, yes.
Did you discuss with him not selling the video, but turning it over to the FBI, the State Law Enforcement Division, the City of Charleston Police Department, the Hanahan Police Department, the Orangeburg Police Department? Which police department did you recommend he send it to?
At that time, I didn't recommend any police department. Later, I told him he needed an attorney because the attorney could better help ferret that out.
And it took days to do that.
No, it didn't.
Now, you're a teacher, you're an educator,
Mhm.
you said that you do research, and as his good friend, you didn't tell him the best thing to do with that is turn it into law enforcement.
Well, Phaeton went and talked to the police that day, which he made very clear. He told them he had the video, and he was afraid. He left because they had asked him to wait. When he said he had the video, he said they stopped, they asked him to wait, and he went to work. At that time, I did not tell him to turn it over because I did not know which way it would go. I can tell you that the concern is whether it would have been released, whether it would have been altered, and those were some of the reasons why I called the news media. But even with them, we didn't talk to them because they instantly said email the video. So I did not turn it over to anyone, and I, at that point, told him that we needed to talk to an attorney, or he needed to talk to an attorney, which he did. And we're talking about a Saturday and a Sunday. And on Monday morning, he went and saw an attorney.
That was Easter Saturday, right?
Correct.
Do you know of any police department in the country that closed for the Easter weekend?
As I said, there was a concern as far as what the police would do with it. He was not trusting. He just saw a police officer shoot a man 8 times in the back. He was not trusting at that time.
The translation of this
Your
paragraph.
Honor, again, I would object to items being published without being marked and authenticated before they're published. We've been through this.
Sir, Mr. Mayor.
This particular,
And now Mr. Savage is testifying in front of the jury.
I guess,
Pardon? Well, turn it off. Do you have a hard copy of something?
in your conversations with Mr. Santana, have you ever discussed the songwriting?
Mm-hmm.
Answer.
Yes. No, because I'm not a licensed translator, so I wouldn't translate his songs.
Did you have to translate anything for him during the course of your friendship with him?
No.
Yeah.
No, I helped him fill out his residency application, but as far as actually translating for him, Phaeton, as I said before, functions well in English.
And when he was interviewed on various television stations, did he have any problem speaking in English?
Once again, he spoke well in English, but when you're nervous, you want to revert back to your native language.
Being on a national television program, did he appear nervous to you?
Oh, he was definitely nervous to the point where he asked several times to have me come out with him, which I stated earlier.
When he was on live TV on a national audience, did he appear nervous?
If you're asking my opinion,
Yes.
when he spoke in English, he was nervous. When he spoke in Spanish, he did an excellent job. When he did Telemundo and so forth, it was a big difference. But when he spoke in English, yes, he was nervous, and he paused a lot to make sure that he thought things through.
When he spoke in English on the Today Show, on Morning Show, on Anderson Cooper, on CBS, on ABC, on Fox News, he spoke in English,
Yes,
and there was no need for an interpreter.
he wanted an interpreter, but he was able to do it. He was able to do it on his own, which,
And you were there,
yes, I was.
and did you have to interpret for him?
No.
When he testified in court, was there any need for you to interpret for him?
No.
Are you familiar with this document?
I'd have to look at it. I'm not familiar with it.
Can you translate it for us?
Once again, I'm not a translator.
Familiar with the document.
I'm not a translator. I mean,
The judgment sustained.
You're familiar with the Spanish language, right?
I'm familiar with the Spanish language.
Let me bring this back to you and see if we can translate it.
I can tell you what it means in English, but I am not an expert translator to give you an expert translation. But I can definitely tell you what it means in English.
You want to go through it and tell us what it means in English?
Your Honor, again, we object. This document is not an evidence that Mr. Savage can lay the foundation and introduce the whole thing under the rule of completeness. It's not a problem, but doing it this way is not how
How
it's
is
done.
it that the solicitor gets to testify, but there's an objection that the defense does? I object.
Both objections are sustained.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Anything further of this witness?
No, sir.
You may step down. Next witness.
They would call Clarence Habersham.
So I'll stand, get a little stretch in before marking the fire. Just stand right there for a moment. All righty.
Do you swear affirm the testimony you shall give the court, the jury, and the trial is to speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God? Please state your first and last name and spell your last name violation.
Clarence Habersham Jr. Last name is spelled Habersham.
Good afternoon, Mr. Habersham.
Afternoon.
Could you please tell our jury how old you are?
38.
And where are you currently employed, sir?
I am currently employed for Aramark Clothing Manufacturer.
Okay, and what do you do for Aramark?
I'm Associate District Manager.
And if I'm not mistaken, you just engaged in that new employment opportunity, did you not?
Correct.
And where did you work before that?
I was a North Charleston police officer.
And how long were you a North Charleston police officer?
About 9 years.
Where'd you grow up?
Born and raised in Mount Pleasant.
And where'd you go to school?
I attended Wandale, but I graduated from Fort Union Military Academy. From there, I went to Elon University, left in 2003.
Okay. I believe you played football, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And when did you start at North Charleston Police Department?
I got hired in 2007, the same year I graduated from the police academy, and got my first assignment all in 2007.
What assignments did you have once you joined the North Charleston Police Department in 2007? Just kind of take us through your career there, if you would.
Okay, my first assignment was the South Bureau of North Charleston, evening shift. I worked there for a year and a half, 2 years. From then,
For the jury's benefit, North Charleston is divided into South, Central, and North, correct?
Yes, sir.
It's 3 different bureaus.
Yes, sir.
You were in South,
yes, sir.
and you were on patrol back then?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then what did you do?
Then I was assigned to the bike team. From there, I tried out for SWAT, made SWAT, then subsequently was assigned to the ILP unit.
What is the ILP unit?
It stands for Intelligent-Led Policing. It was a mini full-time SWAT team. We executed search and arrest warrants for the agency.
Okay. And did you end up returning to the street?
I did. I returned in 2013, I believe, to evening shift,
Okay.
day shift.
And where were you assigned at that time?
Zone 4, which is the Charleston Farm area of Remount Road, Rivers Avenue, mainly.
And that would be the Central Bureau
Yes, sir.
and Team 4, correct?
Team 1.
Team 1.
Yes, sir.
And was that your assignment on April the 4th of 2015?
Yes, sir.
And were you on the same team as the defendant, in this case, Officer Michael Slager?
Yes, sir.
How long had y'all been on the same team together?
Not long, several months.
Okay. And did you know him at all, really, before you and he were assigned to the same team?
I knew him by name. I really didn't know him personally.
And how would you describe your relationship with Officer Slager?
It was good, professional. We ate lunch throughout the course of several shifts together, so.
But it was primarily a professional
Yes, sir.
relationship? It wasn't, didn't hang out with each other on weekends or anything like that?
No, sir.
Okay. I want to talk to you about Saturday, April 4th of 2015. Did you have the opportunity to be on duty that morning?
Yes, sir.
And do you recall what time it was when your shift started?
Normally, we get in at 6:45 for squad briefing. We try to hit the road at 7 o'clock.
Okay. And was Officer Slager working that morning as well?
Yes, sir.
And could you tell our jury where you were at about 9:30 that morning?
I just received a dispatch call to serve a warrant at the Charleston County Jail, so I was at City Hall to pick up the warrant.
Okay, and what kind of warrant did you have to serve?
I believe it was a bench warrant.
Okay, and bench warrant is for somebody that doesn't show up to court in North Charleston, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And when you say City Hall, you're talking about North Charleston City Hall and Police Department right there on Mall Drive
Yes, sir.
off of I-26, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And what happened after you had picked up the warrant to serve?
I saw Officer Banez also at City Hall.
Now, who is Officer Banya?
He's also on our team. He's a teammate of ours.
Okay, so you and Officer Banyas and Officer Slager are all on the same team? is that
Yes, sir.
correct? Okay, so you were talking to Officer Banyas. Do you know why he was down there?
He was finishing up a call he was on. I think he logged some evidence at City Hall.
Okay, and what happened as you were talking to Officer Banyas at City Hall?
The course of our small talk, we heard Officer Slager go traffic stop somewhere on Remount Road.
Okay, did that cause
Eh,
did that cause you to perk up, just knowing that he had stopped somebody on traffic?
Not really perk up, but we kind of took note where he was and why he was there, so it wasn't anything really concerning.
Okay, and when you say you picked this up, do you have like a mobile radio on you?
I have my lapel mic
Okay.
around my chest, so I heard it clearly.
And you can send and receive radio transmissions over the equipment that is actually carried on your body?
Yes, sir.
correct? Okay. And so what happened to change that?
Right before I left to serve the warrant, we heard Officer Slager said he was 1080 on foot.
What is 1080?
He was a chase.
And what did you do?
I immediately ran back to my car, which was parked in front of City Hall. Officer Banez ran in the opposite direction, like, assuming back to his car. Got in my car, drove out the parking lot towards Mall Drive, activated my lights and sirens, and proceeded to Rivers Avenue.
Okay, and so you were going up River, from Mall Drive to Rivers, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Then you would take a left on Rivers to head up toward Remount.
Yes, sir.
Was Officer Banyas responding to the call as well?
Yes, sir. He was right behind me.
And both of you running, is it code 3, lights and sirens, or code 2?
Coulter.
Okay. Now, how'd you know where to go?
During the course of the foot chase, Officer Slager gave out his description of the individual who was chasing and location description.
Do you recall what that location was?
He said he was on Craig Street. Then he said he was on a golden path,
Yellow Road?
yellow brick road, so,
Did you know what he was talking about?
yes, sir.
Okay, because that's your territory too, correct?
Yes, sir. Not too long ago, we had a request to patrol Singing Pines, and one of the main entrances to Singing Pines is Craig Street, and you can see the yellow road from Craig Street behind the pawn shop.
Okay, do you know where that yellow road used to be, by the way?
No, sir.
Okay. And that location was radioed to you while you were en route to Remount Road, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Where is this yellow road in relation to the Mega Pawn, the pawn shop on Rivers Avenue?
It's directly behind it.
Now, after receiving the transmission from Officer Slager indicating where he was, did you receive any additional transmissions while you were en route?
Yeah, Slager said over the radio, 156, step it up.
And who is 156?
That would be me.
Okay, that's your call number?
My badge, yes, sir.
And step it up means
Hurry up. Yes, sir.
I'm assuming. And what did you do, where did you go when you got in the air?
Again, the path they were traveling, I knew that he would end up somewhere in front of the pawn shop. Room.
Did you
But-
have any conversation with Officer Slager when you got there?
No, sir.
What was Mr. Scott's condition when you got there? Was Officer Banyas with you?
No, he went to the actual traffic stop.
And which was at the auto parts store, as I understand.
Yes, sir.
What did you, what did you do after exiting your patrol car and going to the field and seeing what you just described? You saw Officer Slager moving away from you and Mr. Scott on the ground to the right.
I went towards Mr. Scott. I saw that he had blood on his shirt. I knelt down, tried to assess his injuries. Again, calling him sir, trying to get a response from him.
Did you
But-
have any conversation with Officer Slager when you got there?
No, sir.
Okay. What was Mr. Scott's condition when you got there?
Again, he was on his belly. His head was turned to his right. Again, I saw blood on his shirt. Didn't see any movement and didn't get any verbal response from him.
Did you try to?
I did.
Okay. Was he handcuffed?
He was.
Appeared to be dead to you at that time?
I'm not a medical professional. I didn't.
There were no signs of life then, correct?
None. No, sir.
Did you attempt to communicate with him?
I did, just by calling sir, trying to see if I can get a response, if he's okay or something.
And where was Officer Slager while you were tending to the victim?
At that time, I kind of lost track of Slager. I didn't know where he was.
Okay. At any time during this, did you see Officer Slager drop anything or pick up anything?
No, sir.
Did he assist you in tending to the victim?
No, sir.
Why not?
I don't know.
Do you recall seeing anyone else in that immediate area besides you and Officer Slager?
There was someone on the other side of the fence line.
What do you remember about that fight?
He was just standing there. He was holding, looked like a bag or I think a cell phone or something in his other right hand.
Okay. Were you aware that he was using his phone to video y'all at the time?
When I saw the phone, I assumed, but I wasn't for certain.
Okay. Did you ever have a conversation with this person?
Later on, right before Sergeant Gann arrived, he asked me if he's going to be okay, speaking of Mr. Scott, and I replied, I don't know, I hope so. And I immediately asked him to back away from the fence.
Okay. Did you have a first aid kit with you?
It was in my car, but not on me, not with me, no.
Okay, did you have to go get a first aid kit?
After I noticed there was no response from Mr. Scott, and I ran back, or tried to run back to get my first aid kit from my trunk.
Okay, and did you get to your car?
No, right before I got past the parking lot, Sergeant Gann notified on the radio that he was arriving on the scene, and I heard his engine from the opposite side of the fence where the individual was.
And who is Sergeant Gann?
He was our sergeant working at the time, covering both South and Central teams.
And was he your normal sergeant?
No, sir.
Who was y'all's normal sergeant?
Sergeant Webb.
What did you do after Sergeant Gann arrived?
I ran back to Mr. Scott to give Sergeant Gann a reference to where he was because he was lying on the ground still. Sergeant Gann then drove from the opening on Craig Street into the lot.
So he came down that alleyway?
Yes, sir.
And then kind of made a U-turn into the yellow brick road, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And where did he park his car?
Probably 10, 15 yards from Mr. Scott.
Now, who removed the handcuffs from Mr. Scott?
After Sergeant Gann and I got the first aid kits from his trunk, I grabbed his key handcuff key, and I removed the handcuffs.
Okay. And who removed the victim's shirt?
I did.
Mr. Scott's shirt.
I used my knife that I usually carry and cut his shirt.
And so you cut it off with your knife?
Yes, sir.
And what did you do with your knife after you cut off the shirt?
I threw it to my right. I believe I left it open.
Over on the ground?
Yes, sir.
I hand you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 15 for identification and ask if you recognize that knife.
That's my knife.
And is that the knife that you used to cut the clothing off or Mr. Scott's shirt off of him on the morning in question?
Yes, sir.
How did you retrieve that knife?
Later on, after this EMS was finished attending to Mrs. Scott, I believe one of them picked it up and just asked randomly whose knife this was, and I retrieved it from them.
Okay, because fireman saw that knife by Mr. Scott, right?
Yes, sir.
And just to be clear, that was not Mr. Scott's knife, that was your knife.
That was my knife.
Did you observe any other weapons on Mr. Scott or in his vicinity?
No, sir.
Did you observe any shell casings in the vicinity of Mr. Scott?
No, sir.
And I believe State's Exhibit, what's my number there? State's Exhibit 15 was later collected from you by Officer Peterson, or Agent Peterson. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, we would offer 15, I believe, without objection from the defendants.
Submitted without objection.
Now, could you tell us a little bit about the treatment rendered to Mr. Scott? What did you and Sergeant Gann do?
After removing the handcuffs and cutting the shirt, Sergeant Gann handed me some gauze. I proceeded to pack one of the gunshot wounds with gauze, but I noticed the bleeding had stopped.
Do you recall how many gunshot wounds he had sustained, or do you remember?
I think I initially counted 4 or 5.
Okay. And where were they located on the body?
On his right side of his back.
And after you packed the wounds with gauze, what did you and Sergeant Gann do?
Sergeant Gann and I immediately put Mr. Scott on his back. Then we noticed that his eyes were open, no response. Then Sergeant Gann immediately started chest compressions.
Who started chest compression?
Sergeant Gann.
Okay. And how long did y'all end up tending to Mr. Scott there on the scene?
Sergeant Gann, I think he conducted chest compressions for a few minutes before EMS and fire arrived.
And at that time, did he let them kind of take over?
Yes, sir.
What happened after you and Sergeant Gann were relieved by EMS and the fire department?
Myself and another officer who arrived on scene later, we taped off the entire lot, not knowing where the crime scene actually occurred. After taping off the lot, I was told by a supervisor to move my car from the front of Megapond to Craig Street.
Okay, that's because people at the pawn shop were complaining about all the police cars in their parking lot?
Yes, sir.
So you moved your car from the Megapond parking lot to where?
Craig Street.
And where did you park on Craig Street?
Not far from the opening on Craig Street. I want to say 10 yards from the opening.
Now, did you see Officer Slager when you got over to the Craig Street side again?
Yes, sir. While I was driving in, he was speaking to Lieutenant Bowman.
And was he in Lieutenant Bowman's vehicle, or?
They were outside the vehicle.
Okay. Were you asked to retrieve anything for him?
Well, Officer Slager was on the radio trying to contact Officer Banez about retrieving a wallet from his car. I knew Officer Banez was dealing with the crowd that was developing on the parking lot. So I was only 40 yards from his car, so I proceeded to run down, get his wallet for him so Banez could tend to his duties at the parking lot.
Okay, so you returned took Officer Slager's wallet?
Yes, sir.
Did you take anything else to him?
No, sir.
How about handcuffs?
That was later on.
Okay, tell me about that.
After retrieving his wallet, Lieutenant Bowman and Slager got in, I believe it was Lieutenant Bowman's car, and drove down Craig Street into Singing Pines, I assume to go to the other exit. A few moments later, they turned around to come back on Craig Street. Lieutenant Bowman exited the car, left Slager in the passenger seat. I saw Slager, walked up to him to give back his cuffs and told him to ask him if he's okay. He said he's fine, but then he said, why did he do that? And he repeated that several times.
Did you know what he meant by that?
I assumed he was talking about Mr. Scott.
Officer Haban, I would like to show you a portion of State's Exhibit 237. And I'd like to ask you some questions, if we could. Sit down when I'm doing this, kind of easier for you to operate the computer that way. Okay, this is about 1 minute into the video.
That's me.
So we got the kid. That's behind the front shop.
Oh shit.
Specifically, I asked you if you saw Mr. Slager drop anything. Did you see him drop that item out of his right hand
No, sir.
as he was walking by Mr. Scott's file?
No, sir.
Fucking abuse. fucking bitch, man.
You're on the radio at that time?
Yes, sir.
And did you see Officer Slager pick this item up right here?
No, sir.
See my car next to Gerald's, we're behind the pawn shop.
Serious chat.
Where are you going there?
To get my first aid kit.
That siren, that was Sergeant Gann?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just want to show you this second video too, just to ask you who some of the people are. Who are the two people on the right, attending to the victim?
Myself and Sergeant Gann.
And who are the two people on the left?
I will be Sergeant Webb and Slager.
Okay. And whose car is that parked back there in the background?
That would be Sergeant Gann's.
Sorry, I keep calling you an officer, you're not an officer anymore, I guess, but Mr. Habersham, I'd also like to play you a portion of the state's exhibit. Number 8, I believe it is. And you worked for with Officer Slager for several months, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And with Sergeant Gann and Sergeant Webb and others, are you able to recognize their voices?
Yes, sir.
And we have been through the radio transmissions in this case, and I asked you who various voices were, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you were able to identify them for us?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I would like to run through that again with you, and I'll occasionally stop and just ask you who is who, okay?
Okay.
Two 23.
Dakota on a gray color Mercedes, take tag 1318, golf call.
Who is that?
I'll be Slager.
And is that when he initially called in to stop?
Yes, sir.
So you would have been at City Hall at that time?
Yes, sir.
This is Charlie 23 at 933.
Five five one records channel.
This is Charlie 55, 933.
Who is 5'5"?
I'll be Sergeant Gann. Yes, sir.
And in real time?
No, sir.
I mean, it's not now.
Okay.
In other words, the pauses in this tape are the same as the pauses
Oh.
in the.
This is
Yes,
801.
yes, sir.
That's the dispatcher.
Yes, sir.
801. Zone 8, the stolen vehicle occurred overnight, 2426 Woodstock Avenue, 2426 Woodstock from Thielen. A female complainant requested to meet in person. Copy.
That was not related to this case, correct?
No, sir.
So at this time, you're still in the city hall,
Yes, sir.
and you have no reason to be concerned.
No.
Two 23 dispatch, 1080 on foot, down Craig Street, black male, green shirt, blue pants.
Okay, what was that?
I was Officer Slager advising dispatch, uses 1080 on foot.
Okay, and that's what caused you to respond from city hall, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Black male, green shirt, blue pants, down Craig Street. All units north in emergency status due to 223 chasing on foot.
Five dispatch a copy. I'm en route from Scarsboro Coast.
That's Sergeant Gann.
241's en route.
Yes, sir.
Dispatch copy, 936.
I'm diverting en route to help 223. What's your direction travel there?
Who is that?
That was me.
What we got now?
Turn right down Craig Street. Right on the grove. Turn right down. Yellow driveway to the pawn shop.
That's what you referred to during your testimony where he advised you of his location.
Yes, sir.
Talking about more rivers heading that way now.
That would be you again?
Yes, sir.
156, step it up.
That would be Officer Slater.
Yes, sir.
Am I wrong? Go.
5 dispatch, give me a cross for Craig.
Remount Road next to the Money Man and the fire station.
I'm at the rivers in the pawn shop. Where you at now?
That's after you parked at the pawn shop?
Yeah, I think I was actually parking right now.
Okay.
23 dispatch, shots fired. Subject is down. You grab my taser.
Dispatch
And that would obviously be who?
Slager.
copy 223, shots fired. He grabs your taser. Subject is down at 938.
34 copies, I'm en route.
Copy 34, 938.
.241's in area. I'm attempting to locate him.
Dispatch copy 938.
Pawn shop.
That would be Officer
Rivers.
Banez. Was it Officer Banez?
5 dispatch, starting you west.
Dispatch copy.
I can't. Called directly behind the pawn shop.
Who's that?
That was me.
223 dispatch. I need to secure my vehicle.
And with Slager.
Car 223.
Route T, where's your vehicle?
Remount Dakota was the location of the stop.
241 dispatch, and where those vehicles, the Advanced Auto Parts?
Army 241 securing the vehicle at Advanced Auto.
223, are you 10-4? Everyone's 10-4, except for the suspect. They sort of come behind the SWAT shot with a kit. Gunshot wound, looks like the chest, to the right side, all responsive. I copy, make sure the scene's secure on that. It is. Locate another gunshot wound to the butt. 318 round.
Confirm location.
That is you colored in the victim's condition and the location.
Yes, sir.
Now, heard on that, you said something about a gunshot wound to the chest. Tell us about that.
He was bleeding from the upper chest as well before we turned him over, so I didn't actually see that wound until after we flipped him over and began chest compressions.
Okay. And so after you turned him over, you saw a wound on in his chest?
It was above the clavicle, yes, sir.
Okay. And do you know if that was an entrance or an exit wound?
It looked larger than the ones on his back.
What does that generally mean?
It was an exit wound.
Okay. Could you please answer any questions Mr. Savage may have?
So, good afternoon.
I see.
Mr. Former Officer Habersham
Yes, sir.
just left the police department not too long ago.
Yes, sir.
Currently a district manager for a private enterprise.
Yes, sir.
As I understood the questions from the prosecutor, you went to Elon College, is that correct?
Elon University, yes, sir.
And you were there on a football scholarship.
Yes, sir.
And since that time, have you maintained your physical health?
Yes, sir.
As a member of the North Charleston Police Department, did you maintain your physical health?
Yes, sir.
In fact, not just were you a patrol officer, but you had other assignments during your, what is it, 9 years at North Charleston?
Yes, sir.
You worked on the SWAT team.
Yes, sir.
And tell us a little bit about what the SWAT team is.
This is a team that, we get called out to high-risk situations. It would be hostage, barricade suspect, search warrants, what have you. We wear tactical equipment, vests with ceramic plates, helmets, boots, gas masks, firearm, handgun, and depending on the equipment we use, a shield or a ram.
The SWAT team practices extraction techniques and active shooter techniques and all crisis situations, is that correct?
Yes, sir. We normally or try to train two times a month.
And during the year, do you have firearms training?
Yes, sir. That's incorporated on at least once a month.
And how often would that same firearms training be taught to regular patrol officers?
very rarely, if any.
So in comparing firearms training for SWAT to a patrol officer, would it be twice as much or 3 times as much?
At the very least, twice as much.
And when you have firearms training, either as a SWAT officer or as a patrolman, are you taught, or are you trained to fire a shot in the air to warn people?
No, sir.
Are you trained to fire close by somebody so that they can scare them into surrender?
No, sir.
Are you trained to shoot somebody in the ankle or the leg or the arm or the finger to caution them that next step they could lose their life?
No, sir.
When you trained either in the SWAT team or on the patrol team at firearms training, what are you trained to do?
To stop the threat.
And is that to shoot at center mass?
Ideally, yes, sir.
And center mass would be the core of the body.
Yes, sir.
That's what the training employs.
Yes, sir.
Now, in that training, if there is a threat that would cause somebody to fire a weapon, when do you stop firing the weapon?
When the threat's been stopped or the threat's been eliminated.
So if somebody is running, the training says to stop when the person goes down.
Yes, sir.
That's the training you receive.
You shoot to eliminate the threat.
Now, you were on the job for 9 years and you knew of Officer Slager before he was transferred to the day shift. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And his reputation with the North Charleston Police Department was what?
He was a proactive police officer, professional. I didn't hear any negative things about him before he came to the team.
Did he have a reputation as a hothead?
I didn't get that impression from anyone.
Was he a guy that displayed anger?
Again, I didn't.
Did he tell racial jokes, or did he tell anything that would cause you concern about his racial animus?
No, sir.
Was he known as a peacemaker in the community?
I would say so.
Did his supervisors put him in the most difficult situations as a patrolman to calm things down?
Again, I didn't see that while I was working with him, so I don't know that for certain. But
So when he was in South, you were already in Central.
yes, sir.
Now, in Central, the solicitor, do you have that map still?
I don't have enough. I'm sorry, I have to listen to this testimony.
Well, I'll wait. Do you have it? See, we don't have to. Okay. Give the map.
Let's see what I have for you. Yeah, what is it?
The city of North Charleston is divided into 3 bureaus, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And the South Bureau would be the area in North Charleston closest to the city of Charleston, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And the Central Bureau is Midtown,
Yes, sir.
and the North Bureau would be up by the mall, Tanger, and going up to Somerville, is that correct?
Mostly actually falls straight up. Yes, sir.
So the area we're talking about, and hopefully we'll get a map for the jury to see, but it's close to the airport. It's east of the airport.
Is east of the airport.
And tell me, I'm going to continue to call you officer because I'm in that mind frame of when you worked at North Charleston, Officer Haban. Did the patrol division, were they designated certain areas that were more problematic in terms of crime than other areas?
I tend to see that supervisors who thought individuals were more proactive were put in the more high crime areas.
And is it fair to say that Charleston Farms was one of those areas?
Yes, sir.
And that's an area right off Remount Road, from Remount Road south towards the city, 6 blocks or so.
Yes, sir.
And it runs from Rivers Avenue east to where?
North Red.
And do you know what Comstat is?
I have a fairly understanding of Comstat.
So at the morning briefings or the pre-duty briefings, there was a report made by management, the sergeants, the lieutenants, about a specialized area that needed more attention. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And those were based on Comstat statistics.
Yes, sir.
And where you were working in Central was the most problematic area in terms of crime statistics in Central. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And in accordance with that, although you were assigned to Zone 4, your patrol area was just around Charleston Farms.
More or less, you stayed in that area more often than not.
And in the area that you were assigned to patrol, Officer Slager was also assigned to patrol.
Yes, sir. He was my Zone 4 partner.
So you would work in tandem around that sort of racetrack area in Charleston Farms.
Yes, sir.
Never more than a minute and a half apart should there be a problem. Is that correct?
That would be the idea, yes, sir.
And the whole idea of that was to make sure that there was sufficient police presence if something went wrong. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And had you been on your regular assignment that morning, you would have been a minute and a half away from patrolman Slager. At most.
At most, I'd probably be rolling with them.
15 seconds, 20 seconds, 5 seconds.
Yes, sir.
But at the very most, in the worst case scenario, a minute and a half.
Yes, sir.
Now, you listened earlier when the prosecutor played a lot of dead time on the audio.
Mm-hmm.
Was that more than a minute and a half?
I don't know.
So the first time you heard Slager on the radio that was just played was when he was stopping the vehicle. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And it's your practice, as it is the other patrol officers in North Charleston, when they hear somebody is being stopped for a traffic violation, to go in that direction.
It's common practice, yes, sir.
Because you look out for one another, you protect each other, because in a traffic stop, you never know what it's going to bring.
Correct.
Could be nothing, could be a shootout.
Yes, sir.
Now, when you go on traffic stops, you don't wear the protective device and the armament that you do when you're on the SWAT team, do you?
No, sir.
The fact that officers back each other up, that is what is practiced in North Charleston. That's how you run your day. If you were stopping a vehicle, Haban goes in your direction, and you typically would go by and make sure everything's okay. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
That didn't happen this day.
No, sir.
Because on the Team 1 shift in Central, there should have been a sergeant on duty that day,
Correct.
and there wasn't.
No, sir.
There should have been 6 patrolmen on duty that day, and there wasn't.
No, sir.
The people who weren't on duty that day had put in for leave weeks before. Isn't that correct?
I believe people who didn't show up that day were on annual leave. I think so.
And one of the officers that was assigned to be on duty that day never even came to Central. She was sent down to the hospital that morning.
Yes, sir.
And Officer Bainus, who should have been on patrol in Central that morning, was sent to pick up an iPad for some tourist who had left it in a rental car. Is that correct?
I believe that was the call he was, yes, sir.
Your Honor, I'm going to have objection, but he's testifying. If he wants to ask him a question whether he knew this or something like that, that's fine. He's making statements.
This is
Counsel will approach, please. We're going to recess for the day. This time, I understand one of the jurors has an issue. We're going to reconvene Monday morning at 9 o'clock. Want to reiterate my admonition that you're not to seek out any additional information concerning this case or be exposed to any other information. Be unfair to your fellow jurors and in violation of your oath, because you are sworn to decide the case based on the evidence presented in this courtroom only, applying the laws I give it to you. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you back Monday morning at what time? 9 o'clock. Very good. Officer, you can step down. You're
Thank you.
undergoing cross-examination. Please do not discuss your testimony with anyone. I need you back at 9 on Monday morning. I said officer, I mean ex-officer.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. All right. Everyone can be seated. Are there any matters before we leave?
Just an update, Your Honor, I had communicated with you about a witness who was hospitalized, and we were concerned about the delay. We think that's been resolved, so we don't need any consideration, at least at this point, on that. I think he's going to be okay, and we'll transport him here.
All right. Anything further?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll be in recess. Everyone have a good weekend.